Liminal spaces, the strange beauty of in-between places. Liminal spaces are one of the most intriguing and emotionally complex types of places we encounter, even though we don't often stop to think about them. These spaces are neither here nor there. They are transitional by nature, places that connect one thing to another, like a hallway, a parking lot, a stairwell, or an empty train station. While these spaces are usually meant to be passed through quickly, they take on an entirely different feel when we stop and linger in them. They can feel nostalgic, dreamlike, eerie, or even unsettling. What is it about these spaces that grabs our attention and stirs such strong emotions? To fully understand their power, we need to take a closer look at what defines a liminal space, why it affects us so deeply, and what it reveals about how we perceive the world. What does liminal mean? The word liminal comes from the Latin word limen, meaning threshold. A threshold is the space between two areas, the point where one thing ends and another begins. A liminal space is a physical manifestation of this idea. It exists to connect two places or states of being. It's not a destination but a passageway. Examples of liminal spaces include hallways and corridors, the spaces that connect rooms within a building. Stairwells, vertical passageways between floors. Parking lots, vast, empty spaces that serve as the entry point to other destinations. Train stations, stops on a journey where people wait but rarely stay. Abandoned buildings, once active, these places are now caught in a state of neglect and transition. These spaces are functional and familiar, but they're rarely places where we stop to spend time. This in-between nature is part of what makes them feel so peculiar. Why do liminal spaces feel strange? Liminal spaces evoke strong emotions because they don't behave the way we expect ordinary spaces to behave. They lack the activity, noise, and purpose we associate with familiar places. This disconnect between expectation and reality can create feelings of unease, fascination, or even nostalgia. 1. They feel empty and lonely. Liminal spaces are often empty, which immediately sets them apart from the bustling places we're used to. An empty school hallway, for example, feels completely different when it's silent and deserted compared to when it's full of students. Humans are social creatures, and we're conditioned to feel comfortable in spaces with people, sound, and activity. When those elements are missing, we can feel a sense of isolation. This loneliness can be unsettling because it triggers a primal fear of being alone or exposed in an unfamiliar environment. 2. They are transitional by nature. Liminal spaces are not meant to be destinations. They exist to connect one place to another. A stairwell takes you from one floor to the next, and a parking lot gets you from your car to a building. Because of this, we rarely stop and experience these spaces for long. When we pause in a liminal space, it can feel like we're breaking an unspoken rule. The space wasn't designed for us to stay there, and our presence feels unnatural. This can create a sense of unease, as if the space itself is telling us, you don't belong here. 3. They feel like dreams. Have you ever had a dream where you were in a familiar place, but something about it felt strange or off? Maybe the room was too big, or the hallway stretched on forever. Liminal spaces often evoke this same dreamlike quality. This is because liminal spaces blur the line between reality and imagination. They look real, but their emptiness, silence, and strange proportions make them feel surreal. For some, this dreamlike quality is comforting. For others, it's deeply unsettling because it challenges their sense of what's real. 4. They trigger a fear of the unknown. The emptiness and stillness of a liminal space can make you feel like something is about to happen. The quiet creates suspense, and your imagination begins to fill in the gaps. You might find yourself thinking, what's around the corner? Is there someone else here? What if something unexpected happens? This fear of the unknown is a deeply rooted human instinct. When we're in unfamiliar or ambiguous environments, our minds become hyper-alert to potential threats. This is why liminal spaces often feel like settings for horror stories. They create the perfect atmosphere for tension and uncertainty. Why do some people find liminal spaces peaceful? Not everyone finds liminal spaces eerie. For some, these spaces feel calming, nostalgic, or even beautiful. 1. Quiet and stillness. In a noisy, chaotic world, the silence and stillness of a liminal space can be a welcome relief. An empty parking lot at night, for example, might feel peaceful rather than unsettling. For some, the lack of activity creates a sense of calm, like pressing pause on the busyness of life. 2. Nostalgia. Liminal spaces often remind people of moments from their past. A school hallway might bring back memories of childhood. A quiet park might feel like a summer evening from years ago. These spaces can feel like stepping into a memory, which can be both comforting and bittersweet. 3. A sense of wonder. For others, liminal spaces are fascinating because of their mystery. They inspire curiosity and imagination. Who has been here before? What stories do these spaces hold? This sense of wonder turns fear into fascination, making liminal spaces feel like puzzles waiting to be explored. Examples of liminal spaces in everyday life. You've likely encountered liminal spaces before, even if you didn't realize it at the time. Hotel hallways, long corridors with identical doors and soft lighting. Train platforms, empty, quiet platforms during off hours. Malls after hours, deserted shopping centers with soft background music. Schools at night, silent hallways with flickering fluorescent lights. Abandoned houses, empty homes with peeling wallpaper and broken windows. These spaces might feel ordinary during the day or when they're full of people. But when they're empty, their in-between nature becomes more apparent, making them feel surreal and otherworldly. Why do liminal spaces stick in our minds? Liminal spaces are memorable because they challenge our expectations. They make us pause and notice details we'd normally overlook. The emptiness, silence, and strangeness of these spaces heighten our senses, making the experience more vivid. They also tap into universal feelings, loneliness, curiosity, nostalgia, and wonder. These emotions leave a lasting impression, making us reflect on the space long after we've left it. Conclusion. Liminal spaces are powerful because they exist at the edge of normalcy and mystery. They are places of transition, empty, quiet, and disconnected from the flow of everyday life. Whether they feel eerie or comforting, they invite us to pause and reflect, to see the world in a different way. By lingering in a liminal space, we step outside the ordinary. We experience the beauty, mystery, and strangeness of the in-between. These spaces remind us that even the most ordinary places can feel extraordinary when viewed through a different lens.